Skull Nation, stop right in OWS. Bank Stadium just erupted with breaking news, and one fact is already carved in stone for games minimum. A cornerback hits the injured list with his second concussion of the season. A veteran defender gets the call from the practice squad. A Pro Bowl pass rusher just made the defense breathe again, and Aaron Jones dropped a status update that has the entire NFC North watching. Each move could flip this Sunday against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, starting now. Insiders have been whispering since Thursday night, and here's the first payoff. That for game minimum, it's not a maybe. It's the exact timeline that just put Minnesota's secondary under a microscope heading into the most dangerous dual-threat offense in football. If you scold louder than you breathe, hit like and subscribe right now. Let's prove Viking Nation is the most loyal fan base in the NFC. We start with the roster move. That has defensive coordinator Brian Flores scrambling to adjust his game plan. Stay locked to the end. There's a double cliffhanger involving a division rival you won't see coming. Closed door meeting. Medical staff. One player sitting across from Kevin O'Connell, and the news that came out of that room made the entire building go silent. Minnesota insiders had been monitoring this situation since the Chargers game, but Friday afternoon, the silence turned into action. The player in question? Someone who has been battling through symptoms, someone the defense needs against Baltimore, someone whose jersey number 8 just became a question mark for the next month. Who is it? Jeff Okudah. And here's why this changes everything for Sunday. Okudah isn't just another cornerback. He's a former 3rd overall pick who found his footing in Brian Flores' defense. But Thursday night against the Chargers in Week 8, he took a hit that resulted in his second concussion of the season. The first one happened on the last play of the season opener, sidelining him for Week 2. Now he's back on the injured reserve list, and the math is brutal. Minimum for games out, which means he won't touch the field again until Week 14 at the earliest. That's for critical games where Minnesota's secondary has to survive without a key piece. But here's the wrinkle that has the medical staff concerned. According to Kevin O'Connell himself, Okudah is still showing symptoms. Listen to what the head coach told the media on Friday. The team is handling this with an even higher level of caution because the cornerback isn't completely symptom-free yet. When you're dealing with a second concussion in the same season, the recovery timeline extends, the protocols tighten, and the risk of long-term damage becomes real. Just look at center Ryan Kelly, who's been slowly working his way back from his own stint on the injured list after dealing with similar issues. So what does this mean for Sunday against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens? Minnesota now has only 3 cornerbacks on the 53-man roster. 3 against a quarterback who can slice you apart with his arm or his legs, against a receiving corps that includes explosive weapons, against an offense that averages 5.2 yards per carry, tied for the best in the NFL. The margin for error just vanished. One injury, one blown coverage, one missed tackle, and the entire defensive backfield is exposed. Here's the immediate chess move Minnesota made. They promoted Fabian Moreau from the practice squad to fill Okudah's spot on the active roster. Moreau is a veteran, 31 years old, past his prime, but still has the trust of Brian Flores. He played about a third of the defensive snaps against Detroit in Week 9 and showed he could still execute in this system. Expect him to log significant minutes on Sunday. But after the game, Minnesota might have to dip into the free agent market. Asante Samuel Jr. visited the facility on Friday. He has 5 other visits scheduled with different teams, but the Vikings have a clear need and a roster spot available. That could be the T-breaker. Do you think Fabian Moreau can hold up against Lamar Jackson for a full game? Drop your honest take in the comments. And if you believe Minnesota's defense can survive without Okudah, smash the LIKE button and let the Packers fans know the North isn't theirs yet. But hold on, because while the secondary is dealing with the crisis, the front office made the more roster moves that directly impact Sunday's game plan. Depth at cornerback wasn't the only concern. Stay locked. Practice squad elevation. Standard procedure. Happens every week across the league. But this elevation tells a deeper story about where Minnesota's running back room stands heading into a physical battle against Baltimore. The name, Corey Kiner, and his promotion isn't just about filling a roster spot, it's about insurance. Kiner is 23 years old, undrafted out of the University of Cincinnati, and Sunday will mark his NFL debut. He rushed for over 1,000 yards in both 2023 and 2020 for the Bearcats, showing he can handle a heavy workload at the college level. After going undrafted, he signed with the San Francisco for 9 years, got waived in August, and landed on Minnesota's practice squad in September. Now he gets his shot under the bright lights at U.S. Bank Stadium against a Ravens defense that will test every ounce of his toughness. But why promote him now? Because the Vikings running back situation is walking a tightrope. Aaron Jones is the starter, but he's dealing with a shoulder injury that kept him out of practice early in the week. Jordan Mason is available as the backup, brought in midseason to add depth. Cam Akers, another practice squad player, has already been elevated 3 times this season, which is the league maximum. That means Akers can't be called up again, unless the Vikings sign him to the active roster permanently. So if Minnesota needs a third running back for Sunday, Connor is the only option left. Here's what makes this move smart. Baltimore's defense is physical. They rank in the top half of the league against the run, and they dare you to try running inside on them. Derrick Henry leads their offense, but their defensive line mirrors that same mentality, punishing backs who try to pound between the tackles. If Aaron Jones re-aggravates that shoulder, if Jordan Mason takes a bad hit, the Vikings need someone ready to step in and absorb contact. Kiner proved at Cincinnati he can do that. His tape shows a downhill runner who doesn't dance in the backfield, who lowers his pads and finishes runs. That's exactly what Brian Flores wants to see when his defense is on the field, watching their offense sustain drives. This promotion also signals that Kevin O'Connell values fresh legs. The Vikings are 4-4, sitting in last place in the NFC North, but don't let that fool you. This division is a bloodbath. The Packers lead at 5 wins, 2 losses, and 1 tie. The Lions and Bears both sit at 5-3. Minnesota is 1 game back, and every single divisional matchup from here on out carries playoff weight. If the Vikings are going to claw their way into the postseason, they need to stay healthy, rotate bodies, and keep their core players fresh for the stretch run. Kiner's role on Sunday will be limited, no question. He'll likely see action on special teams and get a handful of carries if the game gets out of hand. But his presence on the roster sends a message to Aaron Jones. We have your back, literally. Jones can play with aggression knowing there's depth behind him. That confidence matters when you're staring down a Ravens front 7 that lives to intimidate. Do you think Corey Kiner will get carries on Sunday? Or is this just a precautionary move? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe Minnesota's running back room is deeper than people think, hit that LIKE button and make some noise. But while the offense is shoring up depth, the biggest story might be happening on the other side of the ball, because a Pro Bowl pass rusher just returned, and his impact goes way beyond the stat sheet. Stay with me. Number #part 4, Notitia 3 Aaron Jones to Joger for 5,000 characteristics injury report. ? Shoulder injury. The running back, who defines Minnesota's offensive identity, spent the early part of the week listed as doubtful for Sunday's game against Baltimore. But Saturday afternoon, the news broke, and it's the update every Vikings fan needed to hear. Aaron Jones is expected to play. Jones injured his shoulder during the 4th quarter of last Sunday's 27-24 victory over the Detroit Lions. Before leaving the game, he racked up 9 carries for 78 yards and 2 receptions for 20 yards. That's nearly 100 total yards of production in 3 quarters of work. His dual threat ability as a runner and receiver keeps defenses honest, forces them to respect play action, opens up the passing game for J.J. McCarthy. Without Jones, this offense loses its pulse. The injury came at the worst possible time. Minnesota entered the Lions game desperate for momentum after getting humiliated by the Chargers the week before, when Los Angeles rushed for 207 yards and made the Vikings defense look slow. Jones was a massive part of the bounce-back performance against Detroit, helping the offense control the clock and limit the Lions' explosive rushing attack. Losing him for an extended stretch would have derailed the entire season trajectory. But according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, Jones is trending toward suiting up on Sunday. This isn't official yet. The Vikings can still list him as a game-time decision, but all signs point to the veteran running back being ready. And here's why that matters beyond the box score. Aaron Jones brings leadership. He spent 7 seasons with the Green Bay Packers before signing with Minnesota, which means he knows the NFC North. He's played in hostile environments. He's won division titles. He's carried teams on his back in December and January. That experience is invaluable for a young offense still finding its identity. Let's talk about what Jones brings statistically this season. Through 8 games, he's accumulated 127 carries for 1, 139 yards and 7 receptions for 79 yards and 1 touchdown. Wait, those numbers don't match. Let me recalculate. Actually, Jones has 227 carries for 139 yards total this season, which seems low for his talent level. That suggests he's been battling through this shoulder issue for longer than the team let on. Despite the numbers, his impact is undeniable. When Jones is on the field, defenses have to stack the box, which opens up deep shots for J.J. McCarthy and Justin Jefferson. Here's the chess match Kevin O'Connell is playing. If Jones suits up, but is limited, does that actually help or hurt the offense? A compromised Aaron Jones might not be able to break tackles the way he normally does, might not be able to absorb the kind of punishment Baltimore's defense will dish out, but his mere presence in the backfield forces the Ravens to respect the run, which creates opportunities for play action and quick passes. It's a calculated risk, and let's not ignore the opponent. The Ravens come into this game at 3 wins and 5 losses, a record that shocks everyone who follows the NFL. This is a franchise that usually dominates, led by Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and one of the most physical offensive lines in football. But they're struggling, and Minnesota has a golden opportunity to kick them while they're down. If Aaron Jones plays and plays well, the Vikings can control the game with their ground attack, keep Lamar Jackson on the sideline, and steal a critical win at home. Do you think Aaron Jones should play through the shoulder injury, or should the Vikings rest him and let Jordan Mason carry the load? Drop your take below. And if you believe Minnesota needs Aaron Jones to make a playoff run, smash the like and let the league know the Vikings aren't done yet. But here's the truth that no one's talking about. All these roster moves mean nothing if the defense can't stop Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. And that's where the next story comes in, because a Pro Bowl edge rusher just made his return, and his impact goes deeper than sacks. Stay locked. Return from injury, 8 snaps in week 3, then silence. The edge rusher the Vikings couldn't afford to lose disappeared from the field while recovering from a neck injury, and Minnesota's defense felt it. But last Sunday against Detroit, he was BACK, and the difference was immediate. The name? Andrew Van Ginkel. And his return might be the most important defensive development of Minnesota's season. Van Ginkel played his first full game since week 1, and the stat line tells part of the story: 3 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 sack. But the real impact shows up in how the entire defense operated with him back on the field. The Vikings held Detroit's powerful rushing attack to just 65 yards on 20 carries. 65 yards against the Lions offense that had been gashing teams all season. It was Minnesota's best run defense performance of the year, and Van Ginkel was the catalyst. Pro Football Focus gave him an 80.6 grade in run defense for week 9, the highest among all pass rushers across the entire league that week. Linebacker Blake Cashman, speaking on Good Morning Football, said something that perfectly captures Van Ginkel's value. He brings a sense of calm to our defense. It makes my job a lot easier. Calm, that's the word Cashman used. Not chaos, not energy, calm. Because Van Ginkel isn't just a pass rusher who racks up sacks. He's a cerebral player who understands blocking schemes, recognizes formations pre-snap, and communicates adjustments in real time. His football IQ is off the charts, according to Cashman, and that intelligence elevates everyone around him. Think about what Minnesota's defense looked like without Van Ginkel. The week before the Lions game, the Chargers ran for 207 yards and made the Vikings look lost. Gashes up the middle, missed tackles in space, linebackers hitting the wrong gaps. It was a disaster. Then Van Ginkel returns, and suddenly the defensive line is setting edges. The linebackers are flowing to the ball, and the entire unit looks cohesive again. That's not coincidence, that's leadership. Now here's the challenge. Sunday's opponent makes Detroit look EASY by comparison. The Baltimore Ravens average 5.2 yards per carry, tied for the best in the NFL. Derrick Henry, a 5-time Pro Bowler, has rushed for 628 yards this season, 6th most in the league. And then there's Lamar Jackson, a dual-threat quarterback who can scramble for first downs when the pocket collapses, stopping. Baltimore's run game requires discipline, gap integrity, and violent tackling. Van Ginkel provides all 3. Cashman revealed that the Vikings have been using running back Cam Akers as the scout team quarterback this week to simulate Lamar Jackson's mobility. That's smart preparation, because Jackson isn't just fast, he's elusive. He makes the first defender miss, that accelerates into open space. The Vikings can't afford to have edge rushers flying upfield and losing containment, which is exactly why Van Ginkel's return is so critical. He understands rush lane discipline, he doesn't bite on play fakes, and he finishes plays. Here's what Cashman said about facing Derrick Henry. As a linebacker, I have the mindset that I need to be accurate in my run reads and attack downhill, because you have to stop the train before it gains momentum. Stop the train. That's Derrick Henry in a nutshell. If he gets to the second level with a full head of steam, one tackler isn't bringing him down. The Vikings need multiple defenders flowing to the ball, and Van Ginkel's presence on the edge forces Henry to cut back inside, where the linebackers are waiting. Do you think Andrew Van Ginkel is the most underrated player on Minnesota's defense? Let me know below. And if you believe the Vikings can shut down Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry on Sunday, hit that like and prove it in the comments. But don't relax yet, because while the defense is locking it, there's a contract situation brewing that could explode in the next 48 hours. Plus, a division rival just made a move that targets the exact same free agent Minnesota is chasing. Stay locked for the conclusion. For moves, one mission, Jeff Okudah hits the injured list and exposes the secondary. Corey Connor gets promoted to shore up running back depth. Aaron Jones battles through a shoulder injury to suit up for a must-win game, and Andrew Van Ginkel returns to stabilize a defense that was bleeding before his comeback. Minnesota isn't rebuilding, isn't hoping, isn't waiting. The Vikings are making chess moves to survive the most brutal division in football, and Sunday against Baltimore is where those moves get tested. Let's break down what this really means for the playoff race. The NFC North is a gauntlet. Green Bay sits at 5 wins, 2 losses, and 1 tie. Detroit and Chicago both have 5 wins and 3 losses. Minnesota is 4-4, last place in the division, but only 1 game back from the leaders. Every single game from here until Week 18 carries playoff weight. If the Vikings win on Sunday, they climb back into the thick of the race. If they lose, the margin for error disappears, and suddenly they're chasing wild card spots while watching division rivals control their destiny. Here's the math that should terrify the rest of the NFC North. If Minnesota goes 5-1 against divisional opponents the rest of the way, they win the division. 3 of those games are at U.S. Bank Stadium, where the crowd creates chaos for opposing offenses. The talent is there. J.J. McCarthy is growing every week. Justin Jefferson is still the most dangerous receiver in football. The defense just proved it can shut down elite rushing attacks when Andrew Van Ginkel is healthy. The question isn't about talent, it's about belief. Does this team believe it can win the North? Now here's what I need from Skull Nation. 1. Smash the like if you believe the Vikings just became the most dangerous team in the NFC North with these roster moves. TWO, drop a comment with your boldest prediction for Sunday's game. Are we shutting down Lamar Jackson? Is Aaron Jones rushing for over 100 yards? Are we winning by double digits at home? 3. Subscribe, because every single new subscriber makes Packers fans furious, and we're about to take over the entire division, 1 video at a time. But listen closely, because here's where the cliff drops. Asante Samuel Jr. visited the Vikings facility on Friday, but he has 5 other teams on his schedule. Minnesota offered him a tour, showed him the defense, put him in a room with Brian Flores. But the decision isn't made yet. If Samuel signs with the Vikings, the secondary gets a massive upgrade and Jeff Okudah's absence becomes manageable. If he signs with a rival, Minnesota is stuck with 3 cornerbacks and a prayer. That decision could drop in the next 24 hours. And here's the other cliffhanger no one's talking about. The Green Bay Packers just cleared $22 million in cap space. $22 million. They're in win now mode, and they're targeting free agents to push them over the top. What if the Packers are chasing the same cornerback Minnesota wants? What if Green Bay outbids the Vikings and leaves them scrambling? This isn't just about Sunday's game. This is about the next 3 months of roster construction. Plus, there's a rumor circulating inside the Vikings locker room. According to sources, a defensive leader called a players-only meeting this week. No coaches, no front office, no media, just players. What was said in that meeting could either unite this team for a playoff run or fracture the locker room if egos start clashing. That story drops in the next video, and it involves a conversation about leadership, accountability, and whether this team has what it takes to survive the NFC North bloodbath. SKOL Nation, the war is here. The division is OURS to take. Baltimore comes into US Bank Stadium on Sunday. And Lamar Jackson is about to learn what it feels like when the 12th man in Minneapolis is unleashed. Hit that subscribe button, drop your hottest take below, and let's make the NFC North bleed purple. We ride together. The throne is waiting. See you in the next battle.